Welcome to Reading Through the Bible with Foluke. I'm Foluke. Thank you for joining today. We are going to read chapter 5 of Genesis. Ready? Let's dive right in. So, chapter 5, where we left off last time, we actually finished chapter 4. So, it ended with a new child being born by the name of Seth. Okay, so we have been introduced to two of Adam and Eve's sons so far. And the Bible doesn't tell us that they had daughters or the names of their daughters, but they had daughters because Cain had children, and Seth, the son that we're going to read about a little bit more now, also had children. Okay, so let's go. This is the written account of the descendants of Adam. When God created human beings, he made them to be like himself. This is echoing the God created us in his image verse. Okay, he created them male and female, and he blessed them and called them human, which is Adam. When Adam was 130 years old, he became the father of a son who was just like him in his very image. He named his son Seth. After the birth of Seth, Adam lived another 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Adam lived 930 years, and then he died. So in chapter 4, it didn't do it exactly just like this, right? But you would basically say Adam gave birth to Cain. It didn't tell us how old Adam was when he gave birth to Cain, but shortly after leaving the Garden of Eden. Okay, so just kind of think about those two tracks as we're reading through this. Why is it that we're now drilling into this other branch of Adam? Okay, we'll find out. When Seth was 105 years old, he became the father of Enosh. Not Enoch, but Enosh. After the birth of Enosh, Seth lived another 807 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Seth lived 912 years, and then he died. When Enosh was 90 years old, you should start sensing there's an overlap, right? As they are dying at 930 years old and 807 or 912, there's a whole lot of overlap from the time they give birth to their sons, or they have their sons, to the time that they pass. When Enosh was 90 years old, he became the father of Kenan. After the birth of Kenan, Enosh lived another 815 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Enosh lived 905 years, and then he died. When Kenan was 70 years old, he became the father of Mahalalel. After the birth of Mahalalel, Kenan lived another 840 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Kenan lived 910 years, and then he died. When Mahalalel was 65 years old, he became the father of Jared. After the birth of Jared, Mahalalel lived another 830 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Mahalalel lived 895 years, and then he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he became the father of Enoch. That's the name we're looking for. After the birth of Enoch, Jared lived another 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Jared lived 962 years, and then he died. So before we continue, let's count the genealogy. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, and number 7, Enoch. Just like we did on Cain's side, but the Bible didn't go into detail about each one of their ages, when they lived, when they died, maybe it felt it wasn't significant, because what it meant to point out was simply 7 generations from Adam to, I keep saying Cain, Adam, Cain, all the way to Lamech, right? And this is 7 generations from Adam, Seth, all the way to Enoch. So let's see what the completion, the number 7 on that side of the family tree branch gets us. When Enoch was 65 years old, he became the father of Methuselah. After the birth of Methuselah, Enoch lived in close fellowship with God for another 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Enoch lived 365 years, walking in close fellowship with God. Then one day, he disappeared because God took him. So if you compare the 7 generations from Adam, Seth, all the way to Enoch, and you compare it to the 7 branches from Adam, Cain, all the way to Lamech, you're seeing, or should see, that the Bible is clearly trying to show us a difference. On the Lamech side, there was marrying 2 wives, right, instead of 1. There was the different things, working with metals and animals and things, arts and crafts and things like that, that was like a worship of. And then the murder, the second murder, the first and the second murder, all on Cain's side. But on Seth's side, leading to Enoch, you see a man who walked closely with God. Like, that was it. That is what Enoch is known for. He walked closely with God. And we get to decide which line we want to follow. Which branch do we want to follow? All right, let's keep going. Then one day he disappeared because God took him. When Methuselah was 187 years old, he became the father of Lamech, a different Lamech. Not the Lamech on that other side, okay? The father of Lamech. After the birth of Lamech, Methuselah lived another 782 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Methuselah lived a total of 969 years, and then he died. He was the oldest man who ever lived. So if you've heard the name Methuselah, this is where it comes from. Methuselah, 969 years old. Now, would you like to know what his name means? He will die when it comes. Now, the question is, when what comes? Enoch, who walked very closely with God, somehow knew to name his son, when it comes, he will die. He will die when it comes. What was Enoch prophesying by naming his son that? Well, we're going to find out. What happened from the time Methuselah was born and 969 years later? When Lamech, this is Methuselah's son, Lamech, was 182 years old, he became the father of a son. Lamech named his son Noah. For he said, "May he bring us relief from our work and the painful labor of farming this ground." Painful labor of farming this ground that God has cursed. After the birth of Noah, Lamech lived another 595 years, and he had sons and daughters. Lamech lived 777 years. Complete. 3 completions, 3 sevens. And then he died. So I actually did a little bit of math on this. If you look at the ages of them, this was the first time, with the exception of Abel. This was I guess I could say the second time. This was the second time that a child died before its parents. It's an unfortunate thing, right? Some cultures have a saying, a parent should never bury their child. It's something that is definitely dreaded. I mean, death itself is dreaded, but burying your own child, like, no, the child buries you. You don't bury the child. But if you calculate the ages of these guys, because Methuselah lived to be so old, he actually outlived his son. So I'll let you do the math on that when you have time and like to do little numbers games. I found it very interesting. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now, if you notice, the Bible was listing just one son, pretty much, right? Each line. This time it lists three. Are they triplets? I don't know. Maybe they're the first set of triplets ever. You can research that, but it is definitely interesting that it lists all three, and it never says which one is the oldest. Well, I guess there would still have to be an oldest even if you have triplets, right? Then the people began to multiply on the earth, and daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw the beautiful women and took any they wanted as their wives. Now that phrase, the sons of God, doesn't mean human beings. You can do a lot of research on that piece, but we're going to read more and you'll understand why it doesn't mean human beings. Then the Lord said, my spirit will not put up with humans for such a long time, for they are only mortal flesh. In the future, their normal lifespan will be no more than 120 years. In those days, and for some time after, giant Nephilites lived on the earth. For whenever the sons of God had intercourse with women, they gave birth to children who became the heroes and famous warriors of ancient times. So again, research that. The text does not exactly indicate what that means, but some people would say that they were angelic beings. Angelic, the ones that were kicked out of heaven, angelic beings, the ones that followed Lucifer in disobedience to God. But again, research that phrase, the sons of God. The Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, and he saw that everything they thought or imagined was consistently and totally evil. Some people find it interesting. I feel like I need to pause here for just a second, that the sons of God, right? Here God says that in the future, the normal lifespan will be no more than 120 years. But you're going to find that Noah lives over 600 years. And you're going to find a whole bunch of other people, Abraham and everyone else, right? Not everyone, but a lot of people who live past 120 years. So it's like, wait, God, why did you say that? And then completely contradict it? It's because people like to leave off the part in the future. They're like, yeah, God didn't get that right. God obviously missed it. But mind you, Moses is writing this as God gives him revelation. So there comes a time, and God tells us when, that 120 starts being the limit. And I did a little research on this, and you can too, to see if anyone has lived past it. Now, my research led me to one particular woman, and then as I drilled into it just a little bit, I found that I think she had claimed that she lived 120 years, only to find out that she had taken somebody's identity. It's just kind of weird. But needless to say, there's a time, and it starts in the Bible, where that 120 starts being the max, and God was not playing. And it still is the case even to today. So eat all the good food and exercise and everything, but everyone has a limit, and it was set by God himself. The Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, And he saw that everything they thought or imagined was consistently, totally evil. So the Lord was sorry he had ever made them. He put them on, oh goodness. So the Lord was sorry he had ever made them and put them on the earth. It broke his heart. And the Lord said, I will wipe this human race. I will wipe this human race I have created from the face of the earth. Read slower. Yes, and I will destroy every living thing. All the people, the large animals, the small animals that scurry along the ground, and even the birds of the sky. I am sorry I ever made them. But Noah. But God. And in this case, but Noah. But Noah found favor with the Lord. Noah, who happened to be Enoch's grandchild. Enoch, whom God loved so much because he walked so closely with God that God himself took him. The same Noah found favor with God. So we'll stop here. It's a lot to digest. And in Bible reading, okay, it's really easy to want to stop every second and go research. But you don't want to lose the story. You don't want to lose what it is that God is saying as he's talking, as he's sharing the story, right? And again, I mentioned meditate on it. Talk to God about it. What is he trying to show you? Why is that there? Because every time I read this word, there's something else that jumps out at me. And hopefully there's something that's jumping out at you too. Yeah. So it's a beautiful thing to consider. One thing I will leave you with, if you want to think about this and meditate on it a little bit more, are numbers. What do the numbers mean for God? Why 7? Why was that so important that he showed us 7 generations on Cain's side and stopped, right? He pretty much stopped at Lamech. We kind of saw what his kids, did, right? He birthed all of the other worship of things that God did not like, and the murder, the second murder. And then God paused, and that was it. And God now showing us the 7 on this other side. What is it that God was trying to say? Do you believe it? Do you believe that that's why God would pause there? And if not, why else do you think God asked Moses to zoom in on this piece? Because mind you, he could have stopped at any of those other generations, right? And talked to us a little bit more about what each one of those men did. But he didn't. So why Lamech? Why Enoch? And why did God show favor? Or I don't know if it's God showing favor to Noah. He did definitely show him favor, but it's that Noah conducted himself in such a way that he found favor with God. So God showed him favor. He found favor with God. It's a beautiful thing how that works. But it's always because of obedience. I want to read something back to you, something that God said to Cain. And I think it's something we really should ask ourselves, or maybe allow God to ask us, especially when we get to choose which line, which branch we follow. Are we going to follow Lamech, Cain's side, or Enoch, Seth's side? But this is what God said to Cain when Cain was disobedient. He said, "Why are you so angry? Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted," you could say find favor, "if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master."